Okay, let's kick things off with a little trivia. We're going to talk about the clinical anatomy world's biggest secret, which is actually hiding right in plain sight. If I asked you to name your body's absolutely largest organ, you might immediately think of the liver, or the brain, or maybe even the lungs.
But the answer is actually your skin, known in the medical world as the integumentary system. It's this highly dynamic, soft outer covering that literally guards everything, from your delicate muscles and bones all the way down to your vital internal organs. So welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to decode the fascinating biology of the skin. We'll see exactly how it functions as the ultimate high-tech spacesuit. Because, it doesn't just sit there. It actively regulates your heat, it senses the world around you, and it physically fights off microscopic invaders. Here is our agenda for today. We've got Meet Your Smart Armor, the outer shield, the engine room, the insulation, the HVAC system, and finally, when armor takes damage.
Section 1. Meet your smart armor, the cutaneous membrane.
Think of this membrane like a highly secure, temperature-controlled house. If we look at a cross-section of our skin, we get this complete map distinctly divided into 3 general layers. We go from the superficial top layer called the epidermis, down into the thick middle layer known as the dermis, all the way down to the foundational subcutaneous tissue at the very bottom. Now, to make this super simple to remember, let's use an analogy. Think of the epidermis as your waterproof raincoat, the dermis as the bustling engine room powering the whole operation, and the subcutaneous tissue as your structural insulation. Section 2. The outer shield. So the epidermis is that superficial layer you see every single day when you look in the mirror. It acts exactly like a waterproof raincoat or, honestly, like a relentless security guard. It protects your internal systems against everyday abrasions, harsh chemical detergents, and biological damage from microorganisms. Even though millions of bacteria live right on your skin, the epidermis keeps them securely locked out. Now, get this. What's really interesting is that this seemingly paper-thin outer shield is actually incredibly complex. It's divided into 5 distinct sublayers or strata. It goes all the way from the tough dead cells at the very top, that's the stratum corneum, down to the deepest, actually living layer called the stratum basale. Let's trace the life cycle of a skin cell here, which is called a keratinocyte. Think of it like a biological conveyor belt. The cell is born at the very bottom in the deepest stratum basale. As it matures, it gets pushed upward into the stratum granulosum. Here, it produces a vital protein called keratin, and this is what actually gives your skin its incredible waterproofing power. Finally, the cell dies and reaches the stratum corneum at the very surface. It gets constantly shed into the environment as dead skin and is immediately replaced by new cells from below. It is quite literally a never-ending conveyor belt of armor replacement.
Section 3. The engine room.
Right, so peeling back that waterproof raincoat, we enter the bustling, highly active city center of the skin. The dermis is the engine room, and it is absolutely packed with vital infrastructure. It's got blood vessels delivering oxygen and nutrients and hauling away waste. It holds this insanely complex network of nerves relaying signals for touch, temperature, pressure, and pain. Plus, this is where you'll find your sebaceous oil glands, your sweat glands, and your hair follicles. And the whole shebang is held together by collagen, which is a protein that gives your skin its impressive strength and bouncy elasticity. Section 4. The insulation. So below the engine room lies our biological foundation, the subcutaneous layer, which is also called the hypodermis, holds most of the body's fat. Seriously, think of this as your body's built-in bubble wrap. It acts as a physical, shock-absorbing cushion against trauma to protect those internal organs, muscles, and bones. But it's also a highly efficient backup battery. Your body will actually tap into this layer of fat during times of starvation to provide emergency power to critical processes, especially keeping your brain functioning. Section 5. The HVAC system. Okay, with the structural house built, let's look at how this smart armor actively regulates its internal temperature. To cool you down, your skin uses millions of sweat glands. But actually, not all sweat glands are created equal. Your skin utilizes eccrine sweat glands specifically for temperature regulation, and these are distributed almost everywhere on your body. This is super different from the larger apocrine glands, which are found mostly in areas like the armpits. Apocrine glands basically serve no role in regulating your temperature. Instead, their excretions react with skin bacteria to create what we all lovingly recognize as body odor. So how does this cooling actually work? Well, when you get hot from high temperatures or a tough workout, your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, exactly like a home thermostat. It triggers those eccrine glands to pump out massive amounts of sweat. To put that into perspective, an active person can produce up to 1.5 liters of sweat in just 1 hour. That's like a large soda bottle. The crucial physics here is that as this water evaporates from the surface of your skin, it literally grabs the excess body heat and carries it away into the surrounding air, cooling you down. At the exact same time, blood vessels in the dermis dilate to bring more hot blood to the surface. That is exactly why your face gets so red after a hard run.
Conversely, what happens when you get freezing cold? Well, the system shifts gears into heat conservation mode. First, those blood vessels in the dermis constrict, minimizing blood flow to the surface to keep your internal organs nice and toasty. Next, a tiny bundle of muscle fibers attached to your hair follicles, called the erector pili muscle, violently contracts. This pulls your body hair straight up on its ends, which historically helped early humans trap a layer of warm air against the skin. This rapid muscular contraction actually dimples the skin around the hair, creating the exact phenomenon we all know as goosebumps. Section 6. When armor takes damage. Now, even the most advanced armor can be breached or malfunction, right? We've all been there. Look at the sharp contrast here between external environmental damage and internal systemic reactions. On one hand, we have a sunburn. This happens from overexposure to external ultraviolet light. It damages the cells to the point where the skin turns red, gets really painful, and may literally peel away as the body urgently tries to shed that damaged tissue. But on the other hand, we have hives, or urticaria. These are raised, red, incredibly itchy welts that usually result from an internal reaction, like an allergic response to a new medication, certain foods, or even just a bug bite. We can also face structural issues deep inside the skin's layers. Take acne, for example. This happens right down in that engine room we talked about, the dermis. Hair follicles and sebaceous oil glands become blocked up, very often triggered by hormonal changes. Then there's cellulitis. Remember how the epidermis is that relentless security guard against bacteria? Well, if you get a cut or wound, the armor is officially breached. Bacteria can completely bypass the epidermis, resulting in a deep, red, swollen bacterial infection right in the underlying tissues. Well, that brings us to the end of our explainer, but I want to leave you with this thought to ponder. The integumentary system is just so much more than a wrapper holding your bones together. It's a constantly regenerating shield, a vast sensory array, an emergency energy reserve, and a highly dynamic climate control system. So the next time you feel the environment interacting with your incredible skin, whether you're sweating on a hot summer day or getting goosebumps in the freezing cold, just take a second to appreciate it. Ask yourself, what other armor actively fights every single second of the day to keep you alive?